Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt.
And my name is Jadrian.
It's we're into June. We have made it to June.
It's officially, I call this summer. I don't know, is it technically summer? I'm very bad with like what month is actually the season that I'm supposed to be in because in my mind it's all academic.
Yeah.
Is it officially summer? I don't know.
No, June 21st, I think. It's 21st, 22nd, something like that.
Summer
So
to me.
yeah, yeah. Um what's the beverage of choice on this fine day?
I still did not bring you the pickle beer. Sorry, I'm gonna make you wait another week or two. Grab something out of the fridge real quick. Sam Adams, Breakaway Blonde, part of that big pack of beers that I bought for the picnic a couple weeks ago.
Nice, nice, nice.
How about you?
Uh I was on a 4 night cruise with actually last week took my for my mom's birthday. Took her we went on a cruise. So I missed Sea but very good reason for it. And up there, of course, I had to find some beers. So brought back a Nova Scotian beer.
Ooh, okay. So you took a Canadian cruise.
It went up to Canada for a day, Halifax. Yeah, it was quite fun. I've never been
Very
to
cool.
Halifax. Uh,
What were the ports? Like what did
just
you
Halifax. Out of New
Okay.
Jersey, day at sea, Halifax, day at sea back. So it's
Oh
just a 4 night
wow.
cruise. Yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of fun. And they have a like the government liquor store like 2 blocks from the port, and they were selling single cans of different beer. And I was like, well, I don't have to fly, so I'll buy a lot. Because it's out of New Jersey, so it was easy enough for me to bring them back. What I didn't think about was when I was leaving the ship on self-assist, carrying the huge box of all of the beer. So my arms got to work out, but that's all good. So
I'm surprised I thought you weren't allowed to bring your own alcohol on board. I thought there was like limits. I guess there's limits to
they
how much you
you
can bring, right?
they don't actually let you bring it to your room when you pick it up at
Oh,
a port. So they will confiscate it and bring it back to your room like late,
okay.
in the last evening. So you
Right.
can't, they don't want you drinking it on the ship and not, of course, buying their beverages. So that is, but that's their big thing on that. So before we get to the stat of the day,
Maybe that's that.
name that stat. Uh, you were at Sea Tree last week.
It was. It was really good, I think. I really enjoyed it. Interesting sessions, not how do I say this diplomatically? I think the profession goes in waves in terms of our ability to be innovative. And I think we are at a moment right now where we are not as innovative as we could be because I just don't think we know what's going on. I don't know if that's a fair way to say it. I think a lot of the talks that I saw in the program were talks that we probably should have had a year or two ago about AI and using AI.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know. ChatGPT's been around for 4 years. Like,
Yeah.
why are we just now talking about it?
Yeah.
I think there's other pressing issues than how do you use AI in the classroom, and I don't think we're talking about those right now. So I'm hoping that next year will be a little bit better.
No, that's fair. I still think there's a lot. Using it in the classroom, I think, is still pretty pressing and pretty
Hmm.
new for a lot of people. The other thing is how to have assessments that are fair and accurate and can't be, like that students can't cheat on. And that's
Yeah.
to protect the integrity of the college, but also to protect those who are doing the job the right way. And I think a lot of people are still struggling with that.
Yeah.
So it
That's fair.
doesn't sound exciting, innovative, but I think that's important.
Yeah, that's what I would say is a current innovative challenge that we're facing. I didn't see those
Okay. Yeah,
on
that's
the
a
schedule.
bummer.
I'd even say online teaching is
Okay.
is. I mean, I think we're at a very dangerous space in
I've
terms
thought
of how
about
does
that.
online teaching work. No
I've thought
conversations
about
around
that.
that.
I'm curious I mean, if I teach an online class again at some point, I think I'm going to do an oral exam.
Let me say this, an asynchronous online one, right? Like, I mean, you could at
Yeah.
least do some stuff synchronously that's kind of
Well,
like the
no,
classroom,
I
right?
am going to do a synchronous oral exam with all of my students. I think that's where we're at. I don't think I can do anything else with them. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there's ways, but I trust that, and I actually think there's merit to them explaining to me orally some of this stuff, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
how do you get it? And you know what? They can use AI to start to prepare to think about, hey, what might a professor ask, and think about it, and dive in and stuff, and that'd be good. But no,
You could
very
even do
cool.
it. I'd say you could do it as a 5 minute presentation over a topic and a 5 minute Q&A after.
Yeah, yeah, that could be. There's a bunch of ways. I haven't taught online for about a decade now. Actually, it was 10 years ago. It was the summer before I became got the dean gig. So the
Definitely
so
not interested in teaching online.
no, no. I mean, it wasn't bad, and
Yeah.
paid some bills, which was always good. But I have a statistic handy, and mine is not related at all to our topic of the day.
Okay, mine is. So why don't you
Okay,
go first?
I will go first, and then it's a good segue.
Let me take notes. I gotta make sure I write down your numbers. Okay, I'm ready.
$6 million.
$1 million. What could be about $6 million? Let's go with. I feel like I've seen some stuff in the news that were in the millions is too low for it's too low for any like rich person's wealth. That's too low for it's too low for any government spending thing. It's too high for like a personal like it's not like student loan payments or anything. Actually, maybe let me go with that. Maybe is that the highest student loan account on record? Like, I don't know.
Oh
It's
man, that would
it's
make me
too high
sad
for
for
the
that
average, but
person.
like
I don't know. I don't know
okay.
if it is, which means this isn't the thing. It
No,
is.
no, no. Okay.
I'll give you the second clue. six
Okay.
million dollars annually.
Okay, so it's something that people are probably spending. Somebody's spending $6 million a year. Uh, let's make this AI related. So is that the average
No,
amount that Fortune 500 companies are spending per year on AI?
no, no.
Okay.
It is somebody's annual compensation, a
Oh, okay.
specific person's annual compensation. I'll give you
Someone's
another hint because we want to make it solvable. This is a very timely and relevant one
timely and relevant.
for summer
Oh, for
2026.
summer. Oh, is feels like this is gonna be a soccer player's salary. And I don't know enough soccer players to know Mbappe's annual salary. I don't know enough soccer
It
players,
is
but we'll go
not, and
there.
that's actually way under. I think he makes like 35 or 40,
Okay.
just with the club. But being on the soccer mart, I think you get half a point here.
Okay.
It's the president of FIFA's
Oh, okay.
salary. So as the World Cup is approaching, FIFA president Gianni Infantito's total compensation is about 2.6 million Swiss francs in base salary and about 2.2 million Swiss francs in an annual bonus. So
Hmm.
$6 million. So I believe Mr. Infantino will be able to put food on the table for another year. So
I wonder how that compares to like the NFL commissioner.
I believe Roger Goodell, I believe, is in the 35 or 40 million. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's more.
64.
Um, Goodell is, I mean, the NFL is like, would be, I don't know if it'd be a Fortune 50 company if it were a company, but it's such a massive entity that doesn't
MLS
shock me.
is 5 million.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
interesting.
going to say? That's kind of low.
Though yeah, that's fair. Although it's
I
interesting.
mean,
I haven't thought about it whether that would be low or high. I just kind of saw it and I'm like,
that's
oh,
why it
okay.
seemed kind of low. Like
Yeah,
I wasn't thinking in that space. I mean, for
yeah,
somebody who is responsible for such a big organization in terms of just global importance,
yeah.
it
That's fair.
feels small. I mean, because MLS is small. I'm gonna if MLS is 5 million, everybody else,
Yeah.
NBA's at 10 million.
And you have tickets to a game, right?
I have tickets to one game,
What day are you going?
middle of June. I don't know the
Okay.
exact.
I'm going June 27th. It all got settled, and apparently my wife is amazing, and she has now converted the right to ticket token into
Sure.
the ticket, and apparently that didn't actually cost any more money. So
Are you
we
going?
just
You're going to
I'm going
Philadelphia
June
or New York?
June New York, MetLife
Okay.
Stadium, June 27th. I'm going to see England versus I believe it's Panama, which for me getting to
Oh,
England is amazing, and it was pure luck that it was England in the draw. But it's very very exciting. I mean, top would be USA, no question about
sure.
it. But my number two, no question about it, is England because I'm over there. I've seen several Premier League games. Um, I mean, if they're not playing the U.S., I'm cheering for England all the time.
Mhm.
So that'll be super, once in a lifetime kind of thing. So very exciting. And my wife is a saint for going through the hassles to get me tickets. And it turned out to be pretty reasonable because she went through all
Yeah.
of the hoops. We got a much better deal on it. So
Yeah.
uh,
I will see Scotland and Morocco are my two
that
teams.
should be awesome. So are you
Yeah.
going to wear a kilt?
I haven't decided how I'm gonna approach this day. I've got plenty of time. Well, actually, I guess I don't have plenty of time. That's in 3 weeks. I need to think if I want to wear a kilt or not. I need to get
Yeah,
dressed for it.
that would be very cool. So today we're going to continue our series on the economics by decade. So last time, 2020s, didn't do too much research. I actually probably didn't do as much research as I should have done
Hmm.
on this decade, but I did pull up a couple of charts, and you sent over a description which was blocked or I didn't have access to, so I couldn't see the formatting
Oh,
on
this
how
is
we're
even
going through
better.
the
Well,
questions. Um, so I don't know if you want to take the lead on like the first question to ask or anything like that, given that
sure.
you had this framework that I haven't actually seen yet.
Well, I would say, Matt, it is in our shared Google Drive,
Okay, yeah,
which is
I tried to get on that. Maybe let
it's okay.
me. I'll
It's all
try to
right. I'm
get on that
sending it
again.
to you to your personal Google Drive, so that way you're prepared for it.
There we go. There we
So
go.
I will let's just say we got some comments on the
Yeah, I
last
want to give a big shout
episode.
out to Adam Steinhauer, old
Hmm.
college roommate and fraternity brother, all around great human being,
Okay, cool.
for giving us a very nice comment on AI. Um, and I think, I don't know how much you've reflected. I think he basically said, look, AI is going to be viewed as the dominant some number of
Hmm.
years from now. And I think that's absolutely correct. The biggest economic event in terms of this disruption and how the chaos it initially
Yep.
caused.
Yep.
But it's just like what happened in the individual stuff that happened in the 1920s. Okay, there was the big run up and the crash, and that was the news then. But what was more important to people 20 years from now, that or the fact that the America got electricity and plumbing all across the country, right? Like that was so much more powerful, and the transportation, like I think AI in terms of the impact it will have. I do have the notes up, by the way, now, so thank you. AI will. I agree with Adam on that, and Adam, thanks for the big shout out. And we did get other comments too, but I don't have them in front of me, so I can't recall.
Well, no, I think this is gonna be a fun thing for us to work on and to work on over however many episodes that we do this for. I am very excited to go through this. So one of the things that we talked about in our last episode, and I wanted this is the notes when Matt's talking about me sending him notes. We said last time that we were sort of all over the place, and we needed to be much more structured in how we approach each section. So Matt, I have, with the help of a little digital friend, have put together blocks for us to talk about so that we can
Yep.
try our very best to stay on topic. And so it feels like you already brought up the COVID versus AI story last time. Matt, what would you take as the biggest economic event of the 2010s?
I I I thought about this a bit. There's no one event to me that jumps out. Um, I guess if I had to say there's one specific thing that comes out, is it Obamacare?
Okay, you're jump. Well, I was gonna put. I had that in my policy section.
Yeah, but I mean,
I mean, we
it's
could count
such
that
a
as an economic event.
massive.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of what's impacting us now, I mean, our healthcare was a mess before, and it's a mess after, and and it's tough. That's tough. It's a tough policy to undo. Um,
As people have found out.
People have found out. Um, so I would think in terms of a pure event, but I think the bigger thing in terms of a decade,
Hmm.
the big event might be there was no real event.
Ooh,
It,
okay.
right? I mean, if you start on January 1st, 2010 and go to December 31st, 2019, you've got 10 straight years basically of no major disruptive economic event in the United States, maybe.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah. I
In
mean,
the United States.
if we want to go to other countries, I mean, and I was just speaking of my love for the England soccer team. There's some event about, Europe and England that might have happened around then. But so that my thought would be that there wasn't one, at least in the US. You thought about this and you asked the question. So what was
Yep.
your
So if you
event?
want to get technical, Brexit technically happened in 2020. It happened at the end of January in 2020. So if you want to be super technical, Brexit doesn't count. Well, I mean, I guess they were doing all their run-ups at the end. So I think a really easy answer is obviously the European debt crisis. The austerity measure, basically Greece collapsing. Yeah, I think you can make a really strong argument for that, and maybe had some. So, okay, this is tough because I think I mean, part of this is I think we're like one decade ahead of like I think a lot of the stuff that we saw in the 2010s was because of the 2008 financial
Sure.
crisis. So some of this is I think going to be leftovers from 2008. But if you think about, I would go maybe some of the long, slow recovery of 2008 because the 2008 recovery took a long time
Yep.
in terms of unemployment rates, labor force participation rates on that side. I mean, I think we got back to GDP very fast, but some of that you could argue that is obviously recession based, but then I would say European debt crisis obviously really sort of rocked that part and then slowed down some of the stuff that we were doing here. And then I guess I don't know if it's a preview to the 2020s, but I guess it's a recap of what we talked about last time. But the almost near zero interest rate for a decade
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
out of the 2008 recession, just basically spending almost the entire year at not almost entire year, a large chunk of the year at zero interest rates or very, very low interest rates, which then we talked about last time, really kind of kicked some issues in 2020 when things suddenly, I would say, returned to a normal interest rate.
Return to what,
I don't
yeah,
know.
what
I
you
think I
previously
think
had.
you and I have talked about this in a previous episode with Brian of like, what is a normal interest rate? And it
Yeah.
very much depends on which decade you were sort of an
Which,
adult.
yeah, yeah,
Which
that
decade you
seems
bought your
fair.
house in, that's a normal interest rate.
Yeah. I know for my parents, mortgages would have double-digit interest rates.
Mhm.
And like they were thrilled when it got into the single digits and oh, it's 9%. This is incredible. Yeah, not so much. But in a broader point, you're right. Like in terms of the biggest economic event, I do think it matters a bit whether we're thinking within the US and like my default mindset is going to be thinking about the US, and that's certainly
Yep.
the answer versus the world. Now, COVID and AI, think we were a little bit lucky in a sense on the last one that those two were universal events
hmm
for the entire world, right? I couldn't tell you if there's a specific like event in Asia that would be this. I haven't looked it up. Anybody who are, you know, experts in the Asian, like economics in Asia, or feel free to comment on that. But I couldn't tell you what happened there. It's fascinating. The low interest rates are very interesting. The the other point, thinking through this and looking through the show notes, that they have a word here. They don't really tie it too much, but they kind of mention it offhand. I think in the very early part of the decade, um, fracking in the U.S. made an
Mm.
enormous impact on the U.S. economy. Right? It was a slow recovery,
Yeah.
as you said, and normally, if a president inherits an economy like so, Obama came in right after the Great Recession crash. But I think, and we could look this up to find out if I'm right or wrong. I think basically when he was elected in November 28, he didn't have a month in his presidency where the unemployment was better than that month. Like it was never better than
Mm.
that month, which is pretty rare. The recovery was so slow over those 4 months.
Yeah.
Um, Fracking would have had a huge impact though on the economy in a positive way because of one, there were some direct jobs, but then as we all know now, right now we're dealing with high gas prices. Lower energy prices free up a lot of extra money for people to spend in every other area.
hmm
Imagine if we didn't have that. I mean, I made an argument, gosh, over a decade ago. I know I have an op-ed somewhere where I wrote things out that if it weren't for fracking, Mitt Romney is our president
Hmm.
because the economy would have been maybe a half a percentage point worse in terms of unemployment rate, and
Interesting.
Obama would have gotten hammered. And
Interesting.
you want to break this out, right? And I bet in 2014, if you asked Democrats would have been, well, that's the worst thing ever. You ask it 4 years after that, and you're like, well, if Mitt Romney was president in 2012, then Trump's not doesn't have an on ramp in 2016, right? Like it's kind of an interesting butterfly effect for how everything happens. Um, so I think fracking was a pretty in the early part to lead to low energy prices. Kind of a fascinating.
That's really interesting. As you were going with this, I wasn't exactly sure. I wasn't sure where you were going to go. I was not expecting you to say fracking.
Hmm.
Uh, so, we'll put this in a political space. It's definitely not. It's definitely not economic, but maybe this is a. I remember this is a large political event that I guess would actually probably have some economic impacts. Like this is where Doug McKee would tell us everything's economic. He would remind us that everything is economics. But early 2000s also had this. I remember this
Sure.
really heavy sort of Tea Party movement, but also at the same time, like the 99% protests, just sort of lots of conversations
Yeah.
around, well, I would say both simultaneously inequality, but also this sort of austerity, Tea Party, limited government spending story. So I remember the maybe early 2000s being a very, I don't want to say protest heavy time, but I
Yeah.
remember political protests being big in the early 2000s.
Well, early 2010s for
Sorry,
sure.
2010s.
Like
Yes, thank you.
we
I'm
got to
off.
get
Yeah,
this.
sorry, 2010s.
No, yeah, you're right. I'm just looking through the timeline. November 2010, kind of the Tea Party solidifies its
Mhm.
power. Republicans kind of won, but that kind of started in 2009, but really the
Yeah,
impact was just a bit after. But Occupy Wall Street was
that's what it's
slightly,
called. Yes, thank
yep,
you. Okay, I was thinking. I knew it
was,
was the 99%. I knew it was like a 1%, 99%
yep,
thing.
yep. That
Yep.
was
Okay.
slightly after. That was 2011, right? That's the first date that comes up on Google's AI search.
Mhm.
So no, those are interesting and
You know, they're
if well,
definitely they're definitely big political things from the 2010s, but I mean, obviously, it's going to have spillover
yeah,
issues into, I guess, some of the policies that we've talked about in terms of even things like Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, this sort of inequality-driven story that's fighting up against uh, sort of Tea Party story, which is the Affordable
sure.
Care Act is the exact opposite of what the Tea Party wants. And so I think you get some of these political fights streaming over, or I guess, spilling over into economic fights.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so the protests, it's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that. And that was enormous, and those were on definitely on political issues and how
And
they're
Matt, you know
trying
what I
to,
just realized?
yeah.
I
No,
never
I
gave you
don't.
my stat.
Oh, we just jumped into it. Sorry. Now I need the stat. Should we edit it? We'll edit it back and move it
That's
forward.
okay.
No,
This
no,
is fun.
no.
This shows that even when we have a script for ourselves to keep us in line.
We're stuck. Now I'm excited for the stat, and I know it's about the 2010s. So how can I
Okay,
get
yes.
this wrong?
So that'll help. The stat is about the 2010s. Just I I cannot believe that
Ugh.
we gave ourselves an outline, and yet somehow we still skipped over part of it. Okay, Matt, my stat is 10,000.
10,000.
10,000.
Oh man. Yeah, for those who we've always been unscripted for everybody else, and this is what happens when you give us a script. We screw up. So this is funny. 10,000. Okay. It's too low. It's too high to be number of billionaires created. Um, but million 10,000. These smaller numbers are always tricky. Well, I mean, I say smaller, right? Like,
Yeah.
what in the world does 10,000 relate to? 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. And it's on the 2010s.
It has something to do with the 2010s.
Yeah, yeah, something to do with the 2010s.
So you're gonna get basically like four
10,000.
guesses.
Was this the because I have something later on Bitcoin. This wasn't the maximum price of Bitcoin in the decade.
It's not the maximum price of Bitcoin, but I will tell you for your second clue, it is 10,000 Bitcoin.
10,000 Bitcoin.
Yes.
Gosh, to have it related to Bitcoin in the first one,
I
I feel
know.
like
When you said
I
that, I
feel like I've
go,
already earned half a point.
yeah, no,
Uh,
yes. The fact that you got that so fast.
is that the largest Bitcoin purchase in the 2010s?
It is not the largest Bitcoin purchase.
Okay.
It is the first Bitcoin purchase,
Was 2010 was
was
10,000
2010.
Bitcoins.
And so we'll go with, do you know what and I will say first commercial purchase. So the
Do I
first
know what the first
commercial,
commercial purchase for a Bitcoin was? Yeah, it was some guy ordered pizza
there it was.
and he paid with it with Bitcoin. Yep.
Yes. So there you go.
Yeah.
So it was May
I can't remember. It
22nd.
wasn't 10,000 Bitcoins he paid for the
Yes,
pizza, was it?
he offered 10,000 pizzas and
Or
received, yeah,
10,000 Bitcoins for like a couple
10,000
pizzas?
Bitcoins. That was worth $41 at the
Yeah.
time. So,
For a couple pizzas.
for two Papa John's pizzas.
I did
That
not know
happened.
it was 10,000. I knew it was like 50 bucks of
Mhm.
Bitcoin way back when. Um,
So that happened May 22nd, 2010. So kicking off the decade with a man purchasing two pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins, which would be
you're about to look up.
today.
So it's 70,000. 10,000 times
Yes.
70,000. Is that 7 billion?
Yeah,
Or is it
that's
700 million?
709 million.
700 million. Okay.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah. Um,
I
it
can tell
my
you in our notes we had that the idea that Bitcoin was starting as one of our other big economic
Yep,
events to
yep.
talk about possibly. But
No, and I
I would
think
not put that as the major economic event of the 2010s.
I wouldn't put it as the major event because I mean, what's a one timeline event from it? It's I don't know
Yeah.
that there was, but in terms of a big thing that happened was I think the emergence of cryptocurrency was a very big deal
Yeah.
in the 2010s. And I mean the expanding acceptance of Bitcoin, mainly Bitcoin, but other crypto now is continuing that. I have some Bitcoin largely because it's kind of entirely by accident. I've been known to place a wager or two. And one of the sites, it was easier to do it with Bitcoin. And then they withdrew to Bitcoin and I just kind of left it
Yeah.
there. And I'm like, okay, I guess I have some Bitcoin.
I
And
have Bitcoin now.
yeah, it's not, I mean,
You're a
I
crypto
don't have,
investor.
I do not have a Bitcoin.
Okay.
I have some percentage of a Bitcoin,
Some fraction.
some fraction of a Bitcoin but it's, yeah, I we can't give financial advice, but I think, right? Anything we say is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors, but some will say having a small portion of your portfolio, less than 2 to 3% maybe, in crypto, maybe. The
Okay.
issue I have with crypto is I think it's the same as gold. It doesn't work for you to make extra money.
Hmm.
Whereas you buy a stock and it's going to work for you to make extra money, or you buy a bond, you're getting interest. The Bitcoin could go up and it could go up dramatically again. Who knows? But it's just because people will find Bitcoin more valuable, or it could drop to zero because people don't think that Bitcoin's valuable anymore. So
Something new comes along. Well, Matt,
something new comes along.
the next section I had, we kind of already hit on some of it, so I guess we can recap it.
Okay.
Big numbers that define the decade, maybe economic indicators. You
Yes.
gave one of them earlier with the unemployment rate. Maybe just sort of briefly speak it again. Well, what was going on with unemployment in the
Yeah.
2010s?
And big thanks to the show notes that we haven't gone through to make sure that this is accurate. Was it really still 9.8% unemployment in January 2010?
I was actually checking Fred as you were talking just to make sure that
Yeah.
those numbers are correct. So according to Fred, January 2010, 9.8%. If we fast forward all the way to December 2019,
Yep.
3.6%.
So it's crazy and it was almost a continuous drop. I
Pretty
mean,
much, yeah. Little ups and downs, but
I mean, yes, every now and then it might go up by zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2,
mhm.
but more or less a straight decline. That's what I said early on. Our little notes say there was some decrease in the participation rate.
So
Um,
this is one that I talk about in my labor class a lot of was that one thing that's really interesting was sort of basically talk about like why was unemployment rate falling because you had these sort of two competing things happening
yeah,
at the exact same time. So in July 2021 or 2000 maybe, let me go back. July, oh no, see, I keep going to the 2000s for some reason. July 2010, 64% was the labor force participation rate. That fell down to about 63%, and then it kind of hovered around 63% for the second half of the decade. So we did see
okay.
this sort of mass, and I would say, I'm sort of thinking ahead already into, things that changed about how we work and how we consume. One of them was this sort of steep drop in labor force participation rates. Boomers retiring,
Did you
essentially.
say 64 to 63, or did I miss a
So
higher number?
66,
66 to
about
63
66, yeah. So
to
actually, here, I'll
63.
give you the exact numbers. 2010, 64.8, so let me call it 65, 65%, and then it dropped as low as 62, and then
Yeah.
sort of hovered around 63. So it fell about
Okay.
2 percentage points.
Yeah. So labor force participation dropping, but certainly. the ability to find a job got dramatically easier as the decade went along.
It did, but
Uh,
you had a lot of people who just, sort of post-recession said, I'm done. I'm
yeah,
not coming back. Take my retirement, what's left of it, and enjoy the years
yeah,
I have left.
yeah. Which could be bad, right? Or it could be good, depending on the framework, right? I
Well,
mean,
and on the framework, I mean that's part of the argument of why the unemployment rate was able to keep falling was you had these people dropping. From what I remember, there was a lot of older individuals dropping out of the labor force, which essentially opened up jobs for younger workers to help
yeah,
drive down that unemployment rate.
yeah,
But also part of it is maybe it's the discouraged workers are falling out of the workforce of high unemployment rates where they go, you know
yep,
what, I'm just going to quit looking and I'll just drop out of the labor force instead.
yeah, yeah. So unemployment rate continually fell. That's good. Uh, Wages, though, didn't necessarily rise.
Your favorite topic to talk about for good
Didn't
reason.
necess didn't necessarily drive increase as much. A bit of a slower growth, which I think if you think in the abstract, right, like thinking like an economist, what's the sequence of events that will happen?
Mhm.
Unemployment is high. Okay, unemployment is high. Then why do we have cycles in the economy? If unemployment is high all of a sudden, employers should be able to hire people a little bit less expensively. And that pushes down the unemployment rate. So the first action that will happen is more people will get jobs and the unemployment rate drops. The next action, once the unemployment rate gets to a pretty low level, okay, now all of a sudden there isn't this massive surplus of available labor, and then you might see wages increase. So to me, it makes sense that this would have happened, even if it's a disappointing story. And maybe there were ways to make it happen a little bit quicker.
Well, so this goes back to, I think, your comment earlier about this was a decade that I know you said again, we're very going to be US centric here. This is obviously what we know.
Yeah,
We know best. It is interesting that, I'm going to pick on another number here that sort of defines this decade, but it's not really going to be, I think, anything that's really different. But maybe it'll lead us into some of the stuff we were fighting with this year. Yes, unemployment rates fell almost the entire decade. Some of that I would say is just we had the worst recession in 70 years. And
yeah,
so sort of
sure,
naturally it just returning back to normal. But one of the things I think that really changed in this particular decade is the amount of debt that the US took on. And I think that's where you're seeing some of this is because of the recession. Some of this is the sort of the Tea Party movement of it comes up because of the debt. And then some of it is, at least at the tail end of it, is going to be we see it again when we need the pandemic. But I just pulled up on Fred the total public debt, and to be fair, I don't believe in real terms, so I'll give you in nominal terms.
sure.
The national debt, oh, I can't do this math that fast. Thousands, millions. So it's going to report it in millions, but I know it's
Oh,
not millions.
it was always in
It's
billions
it's
or
millions of.
trillions of
I'm
dollars.
going to give
It's
you
always in
millions of
trillions.
millions. Yeah,
It's
millions of
trillions.
millions.
Yeah,
So
trillions of
tw
dollars.
12 trillions is millions of millions.
Yeah.
Okay, I trust you. 12.7 trillion at the start of 2010.
Yep.
By the end of the decade, 23 trillion
Basically
as the
doubled in a
national debt.
decade. We can back up. I want to talk about debt a bit first.
Sure.
I might revise my answer. So real median household income going to Fred, thinking
Yeah.
about this. Um, it did, I mentioned the idea of what should happen,
Hmm.
thinking about the sequence of events. It started at about 68,000 and it hovered between 68 and 70,000 basically, or 67 and 70,000 the first 4 years. But it started at 68,420 and it ended the decade at 81,600. That's
Yeah.
not trivial household income growth and that's the middle household. That's not the richest. This is the middle. Uh, to me, that's actually pretty decent growth, although it's
On the back
very
half.
concentrated
Yeah.
in the last. It was all concentrated in the last half. The last half was
Yes.
incredible growth, right? I
Yes.
mean, to have the average family be $12,000 richer in 6 years is stunning. I mean, how often in the history of the world have has the median family become $2,000 US dollars richer per year over a 6 year period? And I'm guessing there's only 5 to 10 of those. There could be more, but it's that's huge growth. And so even over the whole decade, I'd say that's pretty reasonable growth. And real median household income, there's some flaws over time in the sense that household size still drops. So, right, like,
Well, Matt, let me connect this back to our earlier story about Occupy Wall Street. I
okay,
pulled up income before taxes of the bottom 20%. So instead of
okay,
the median, right? Median's going to be
bottom
the half
20.
for our
Okay.
listeners. Bottom 20%.
Is this households or
It just says income. I'm trying to
okay?
scroll. I
That's fine.
searched houses, but it
Yeah, yeah,
looks
that's
like
fine.
it says by the consumer unit.
Okay. It's
I'm not sure.
it's gonna be ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you that one remained relatively flat. In 2010, that was about $4,000. And then in 2020, it was 4,000. It was a little bit below 4,000. And then at the end, it was $4,001.
So the bottom, the lowest percentile, very low. Of course, that I mean that does
Yep.
also contain college students, and
Yep.
I mean if it's personal, wouldn't that contain college students, high school students, and we've had the story on the decrease in the
Mhm.
willingness to work.
Let me see if I can get. See, the tough part is it's hard to get the percentiles on Fred for real income. Let's just do a Google search real quick. Percentile real household income. And so this could be part of where that's coming from too. So even though, right, I mean, we were looking at the median, so it's capturing that middle family in the United States. One of the big fights, I can't quickly find percentiles, was that Occupy Wall Street. And so it would be interesting. This is where you and I probably should have prepared a little bit better. Maybe somebody else will know uh, that we will try to find it for the show notes. I will do my best to find the
Yeah.
breakdowns by. I'll get you some 2010 ratios, or what they
Yep.
actually no, they're called 80-10 ratios. No, 80
Or
20
80 20,
ratios.
80
80
20.
20
Yeah.
ratios. I remember we used to do
But
these in the labor course all the time. It's
yeah. The debt, I mean, the debt went up dramatically. It went up dramatically under Obama, and then
yeah.
Republicans talked about how terrible it was, and then it went up dramatically under Trump again, and then Democrats talked about how terrible the debt was, and then it went up dramatically under
Okay.
Biden, and Republicans talked about how
Yeah.
terrible it was, and now Republicans are in, and Democrats are back to talking about how terrible the debt is, because it's I don't know if it's quite hit 40 trillion yet, but it's getting there if it hasn't quite hit 40 trillion yet.
Here I have the debt still open. We're at 38.5.
Okay, so yay, we may not hit 40.
We will before the end of this decade. I feel very confident
Yeah, yeah.
that we will hit that before the end of this decade. So
I think you're right. I think
so
you're
would
right.
you call this then? Okay, so maybe this will be again a preview into our next episode. Would you call this the debt decade, or is that going to be the 2010s?
Or the which one? What do you mean?
Sorry, I see. I did it again. The
Yeah.
2000s or the 2010s? Which is the sort of decade of massive debt? Which would you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you could call the 2010s a decade of massive debt versus so the debt went up 12 trillion to 23 trillion. It's already gone up more in nominal terms 6 years into the 2020s. So I don't know that we could call any of these decades the decade of debt.
I'd say just eyeballing the slopes of these lines, the 2020s definitely do look steeper than the 2010s.
Yeah,
But we didn't talk about debt on our last episode,
we really
so maybe
didn't,
we're
which we
previewing the
probably should
next
have.
one.
We probably, well, yeah. And it's at some point, right? It seems like it's no problem, it's no problem, it's no problem, and then all of a sudden it's a very, very
That's a
big
problem.
problem. And
That's a problem.
so it wasn't a problem during the 2010s.
Yeah.
It was talked about, but it wasn't yet a problem during the 2010s. Other things on our notes, right? The stock market
Mhm.
nearly tripled, right? For those, and once again, we can't give financial advice, but if if you look through history, if you had invested a lot of money in the stock market in, say, mid to late 2007, you were feeling very sad for a little while. But if you just kept the money there, right, the stock market recovered. Or if you invested, I remember, I guess you would have been, was it your graduation year from undergrad 2008?
No, I graduated in 2005. So I graduated. I was
2005.
in college in the 2010s.
Yeah, yeah, or grad
I
school
was I was doing my PhD in
in the
something.
20s. Yeah, yeah. But I remember, so I started at Susquehanna in 2004 and you put into the retirement plan or whatever. And we've always had a very generous match, which is awesome. And I put it mostly in stocks and it
Mhm.
dropped. But when it dropped, I was like, wow, I'm just getting a much more shares for each dollar I throw in, right? That drop of, the Dow and S&P dropping basically in half meant was good for me. Like fluctuations are good if you're in a long-term time horizon.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but it had recovered a little bit from the crash 2008 to 2010, but then yeah, S&P 500 nearly tripled in the decade. So those kind of invested in the stock market did quite well over time. And looking really, it that hasn't really slowed down since the 2020s. We
Mhm.
didn't talk about the stock market that much, I think, in the 2020s either.
All right, Matt. I'll combine these into two because I think we're running along a little bit. So if I can
Yeah,
get you to pick what is the biggest labor market shift, if you take the biggest labor market shift, I'll take the biggest change in consumer behavior. We got to think about how we want to phrase that. I think we did labor market shifts last time. I think we talked about work from home as the
yeah,
2010s
yeah,
is the biggest change. What would you pick as the
yeah.
2010s?
Well, and I would go with I do think the gig economy wins that argument. The the idea of people not necessarily working full-time jobs
Yeah.
and moving into going into like Uber, Lyft, any other thing, and that has expanded since, but we didn't talk about it in the
Mhm.
2020s because it's now seemed normal to us.
Yeah.
So we weren't talking about that. But what would your thought be on that one?
I'm probably in the same boat. I mean, it really is just the gig economy is huge. I drove Uber even in state college when it first came there in the 2010s, just for fun, to see what it was like. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd have to pick that, right? I mean, there's lots of other things going on. You think about all the China shock stuff that was happening in the 2010s, but I mean, just really, I think when especially the way that we did in the 2020s, something that affected sort of the entire country was this sort of gig economy, freelance work really exploding. I think about things like WeWorks, like these sort of work
Hmm.
sharing
Yep.
office things took off. I definitely have to pick that one.
Yeah. Yep. And so then yours to pick biggest change in how Americans spent or lived.
I mean, it has to be a cell phone. It has to be a smartphone. Right? I think I'm gonna go with the smartphone. I can't imagine a bigger deal, even though it comes out at the early 2000. The first iPhone is released at the end of the 2000s.
2007. Yeah,
Yep.
2007 was the first iPhone. Yep.
But I mean, in terms of just sort of I think this is going to link all these together. So they're coming out, but I remember like my first apps on my smartphone were like that fake beer drinking app.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember
yeah.
having this?
I didn't have that one, but I
Okay.
remember like paper toss and stuff,
Yeah.
like just dumb little apps. Yeah.
They were just visual apps of like regular games. But like through the 2010s, that's where, I mean, I guess take Uber as an example. The fact that Uber exists is because of smartphones and our ability to just
Yep.
call somebody, well, I say call that, uh, request a ride
Yeah.
in the moment. I have to put smartphones up there. You know, I moved, and I'll give you a personal example in this space is I moved from Texas to Washington I graduated in 2010. So this is I vivid memories of moving up to Washington at the very beginning
Yeah.
of that decade. I had a smartphone, could not use it for GPS. Like I did not have the data necessary to run that
Yep.
GPS. I had to go buy a physical GPS from Walmart so that I could drive because I also wasn't going to print directions on MapQuest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the smartphone at the beginning of the 2010s, really not the smartphone that we think of today, but we think about GPS ability, uh, being able to stream things on our phone, being able to watch Netflix or play on social. I guess even think about the rise of social media really coming from phones.
Yep.
I'm going to pick the smartphone as the most important change in how we spend our
Yep.
lives.
I agree with you. I
Okay.
agree with you on that one. And I was an article. I don't know if this is what I saw. I just did a quick search on this to see the title. There's a Substack article by David Oaks, OKS,
Okay.
Ox. The title is Why ATMs Didn't Kill Bank Teller Jobs,
Yeah, that's a
but
good
the
one.
iPhone did. Right? Like
Oh,
if
being able to put a check. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
you think about that, right? People warned that the ATM, but it was
Huh?
this completely different thing we didn't think about. And, you know, Apple Pay coming around and it allowing the opportunity for Uber. And we have a great alum who I had the fortune of teaching when he was at Susquehanna and still stay in touch with. He created a dog walking app
Mm,
where
mhm.
people could, if they were running late from work, they could go, it only works in major metro areas because you need a population base. They could say, oh, I need a dog walker in the next hour or your next half hour and plug it in and somebody shows up. Um, it, I do think that, I do think that's good. I completely changed so many things about the way we do everything. You're right. GPS, um, the smartphone did kill a lot of different separate devices between
Yeah.
GPS, uh,
Yeah.
MP3 players gone, just completely. Why? Yeah, so many. Like streaming video, payment systems. It's personal computers. It's kind of stunning.
Easy choice.
Easy
Easy
choice.
choice for me on that one.
Yeah, the other options, I do think there was another option, the subscription economy and the, like kind of, it came out, I don't know if was that entirely a 2010s thing. I do think the smartphone helps a little bit with the subscription economy though as well too, because people are,
Yeah.
why, I can watch Netflix on my phone instead of going to going to the video store and all of that. So,
All right. Biggest policy win or flop? We can go, we'll do an or. This I'm gonna take this back to this isn't I mean we've talked about one, I think, repeatedly. There's really one policy that I think defines the 2010s.
okay, what is it?
The Affordable Care Act, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I can't. There are other things that happened. Sure. Dodd-Frank happens. Yes. Uh, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from Trump's first administration. Yes.
yeah,
Student loan fights. Yes. Okay. Like there's policies,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think anything has been as contentious as the Affordable Care Act. It goes up to the Supreme Court. It tries to get repealed. It comes back. People hated it. Well, I guess people liked it enough to that it was voted
To
on,
keep
but
it. Well, people don't want to pay more, so
people
it's
want to
not.
pay
That's why it's
more.
tough to go away. I mean, I think, yeah, I would say that's the biggest. I mean, it passed, but in terms of something terrible, right? That was so disruptive. Like, why was the economy so slow to recover? Because we had a higher unemployment rate in the early 80s, and yet we recovered in a snap. The focus on pushing Obamacare through instead of, hey, let's get the unemployment rate down. Um, I'm sure it was a delay on things, and I mean, who now says, "Oh, the U.S. healthcare so good," right? Like, I mean, in that line, this is a massive,
Yeah.
massive failure. So I would say that, I mean, it passed, and people don't want to repeal it, but how many people say the U.S. has great healthcare? How many? I mean, it just doesn't happen. So I'm gonna argue that that was the biggest failure.
Failure. Ooh,
Failure. I have a
failure.
different one for. I do think there's a clear
Okay.
winner on this one, and it's kind of a different policy one from other things, but. Um, the first Trump administration had a rule: any new government regulation that goes in and two must be eliminated.
Hmm.
And we talked about the income growth rates. I don't think that's a total coincidence um, that removing some. I think there's two parts to it. Removing regulations that could restrict growth is good, and also it's a little bit of a signal, and it probably made it more difficult to pass additional regulations. So that would have been my vote for the
The good one.
better
I forgot
one.
about that one.
Yeah, that would have been my vote for the good. And it's a weird one because it wasn't really like a Congress thing. It
Mhm.
was but it's kind of crazy. I would have thought in a different world, I'm like, how am I letting Dodd-Frank off the hook? But like that's all. Um,
So hey,
but I don't know.
since you mentioned the support and I don't know what's the opposite of support? I can't think of
I thought the
it.
best, the biggest win and the biggest, or the best and the worst, I
Yeah.
guess.
So
What?
I pulled up from the Kaiser Family Foundation. When Obamacare or the ACA was signed into law, the favorable and unfavorable split was both of them were below 50%. A lot of people didn't know what to think. Both of them sort of hovered around this 45% mark until it looks like 2016, 2017 or so. And then the favorable portion took off. And today, at the most recent survey, 61% have a favorable opinion of the Affordable Care Act, and today, 38% find it unfavorable. So, since you mentioned that, I figured I would at least bring
That's
some data
interesting
in
because
there.
I think that if you ask the same people, does the U.S. have good health care? And this whole thing was about health care. I think there's plenty of people, and this would happen on either side. If, hey, it's named for the, if I say it's bad, that's like supporting Trump's argument. I can't possibly say it's bad, um, but if you think U.S. healthcare is great or Obamacare is great and disagree with me, leave a comment. I want to hear it. I want to hear from those who say this did the job. We're doing awesome now. Thank you for fixing those problems for us. I would like to hear that. And
Or if there's a policy that you think is bigger or dumber,
yeah, yeah,
better or dumber, please let us know.
that
I've
would
been,
be
I've been dropping polls. I didn't actually get to see if people responded to our polls last time. Those of you who are listening, we do put our show notes online, and you can vote in polls. And it looks like we had 3 people vote in last week's poll. So please log into the show
we
notes,
need
vote.
we need more.
We need
And
more
we know we
votes.
had like hundreds read it. So we do see the stats on that. And big shout out to all the new listeners of the podcast. So.
All right, Matt. Pop culture corner. I've got one. It involves
Why
our
don't you
friend.
start? Because I don't know necessarily where to start here.
I will kick this off because it involves a handful of our friends and friends of the show. Shark Tank came out
Oh,
technically
yeah.
in 2009, but many would argue was sort of the business show of the 2010s. Our younger listeners are going, you mean that show that we're still watching today on late night television? I watch, I don't know if I've ever told you this, every time I stay in a hotel on a trip, I will always watch Shark Tank before I go to bed.
That's hotel watching for
It's
you.
peak hotel watching. But the reason I bring that up is because a handful of our friends and friends
Yep.
of the show did create, they were going to create a website and then it never took off. And I have a feeling that they probably regret it a little bit. They probably thought the show was going to die off, but it turned out it didn't. They created a teaching guide back
Hmm.
in the middle 2010s. These are our friends Darshik Patel at the University of Kentucky, Abdullah Al-Barani at Northern Kentucky University, Charity Joy Acciardo, who is now at the University of Texas, and Brandon Sheridan, who is at Elon University. They created a teaching guide called Dive In: Tips for Teaching Economics Through Shark Tank, so that any of our economics educators out there, if you would like to use Shark Tank in your classroom to teach different econ concepts, they have some great examples of clips. But I will say it is from the first 6 years of the show, and there have since been 10 more years. Uh, Surprisingly, there is not a dedicated website to Shark Tank.
They did have one, and I can't
Okay.
remember who it was that I talked to about why, they just didn't think there was quite enough use to keep it up.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
funny now that like we know how big this show actually ended up becoming.
yeah.
As a show,
Uh,
17 seasons it has been in place.
that is crazy. So I'll go through as you were mentioning. I was scrolling through and I'm like, why don't I just figure out a Broadway song from the 2010s that
Okay.
I like? And this one kind of hits on an issue that we didn't really talk about, but
Interesting.
I think it was a political economic issue in the 2010s a bit and is still one today. The songs maybe I brought it up. It's from your favorite musical you've ever seen, Hadestown.
No, oh.
I love Hadestown, and Jadrian did not love Hadestown. Did you say you loved
Well,
it
I didn't only saw the
Intermission?
first half of Hades Town, so I don't know if
Ah,
the second half was
you
better.
missed the song.
I walked out.
I think you
Yes,
missed.
I did walk out because
Did
I'm
you?
rational. I was not having a good time. I said
I
I want to
think
go home.
I think you missed. I think this is the second act. I think "Why We Build the Wall" is the second act song, but Hades is singing about why we build the wall, and the but it's we build the wall to keep us free, to keep the enemy out, the enemy's poverty. But it's a lot of ties on to immigration. And I swore when I heard that, I'm like, well, they wrote this in response to this Trump administration. Broadway is not known for being on the right or subtle, and but it was written actually way before 2016, apparently. Like it went to Broadway in 2019, but the song was written well before that. It's actually a stunning song, really great song. If you want to listen to it, but it kind of brings up issues that are still debated today and were debated a lot in the 2010s on immigration and disintegration, what does immigration do to the economy? And that was the 2019 winner for Best Musical, Tony Award winner, Jadrian's favorite. So, uh, you know, I saw it on Broadway. Broadway was amazing. The cast, things can change dramatically. You don't know who you saw. You don't know how well the sound design is, right? I mean, if you could see it, maybe it was good actors, but the sound system just doesn't work all that well. Maybe you saw actors that are were on a rough night. You never know what it's
Listen, it's
live
the
theater.
only Broadway show I've ever walked out on.
Okay.
Or sorry, I should say the only musical. I shouldn't say Broadway because I saw it in Roanoke. So the only
Yeah, yeah.
musical I've ever walked out on.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But thank you to everybody for listening. This one, this did go a bit long, so hopefully you're still there. We've had a huge growth in our Substack page, which has been awesome. So a huge shout out to everybody who has tuned in. Um, One thing that would help us if you want to thank us, like we know we have like 500 plus people who open 500 to I think every single they open this, and then there's a number more who have it downloaded straight to their favorite podcast provider. I think Spotify we might have 20 or so ratings. On Apple Podcasts, I think it's only like 6 5-star ratings. No, there's nothing other than a 5-star, which is great. But if you happen to be on Apple, give us a 5-star rating. That helps other people listen to us. So,
Good
um,
reminder.
yeah, gotta throw that out there. But how was your blonde?
I was saving that. I was found myself drinking it so quickly. I was getting excited to talk about this
Yeah.
episode, and I got about down right about towards the bottom, and I go, I need to wait so I can have the final drink with Matt.
You have more. Well, I guess I have a little bit left. So, cheers.
Good, it was delicious. Cheers, Matt.
Okay. Stop.